Hey guys, welcome back to the channel for another year of the Co-op Monthly, and boy oh boy are we off to a fast start. Between Palworld popping off with player count and potentially popping right back out with controversy, or Granblue Fantasy Relink having one of the most confusing rollout strategies I've ever seen, to Suicide Squad literally raising every red flag and then the Sony State of Play dropping 24 hours after this video drops, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and I imagine you are too. It must be nice to be in your shoes because you have the Co-op Monthly, the best place to hear about all the co-op games that came out last month, the co-op games coming out next month, and any co-op news in between. We're here to shoulder the load, so sit back and enjoy January's Co-op Monthly.
We've been riffing on the fact that February has an insane amount of quality co-op releases, but January threw us a couple curveballs, so let's get into it. So I'm pretty sure no one had Palworld sells more than 8 billion copies in 6 days on their 2024 bingo card. If you did, then you should probably go play the lottery, my friend, because you might be psychic. We're going to talk about the game going viral along with all the controversy surrounding it in our news blog later in the video, but for now, let's focus on the game itself and what critics and gamers had to say about it. Palworld currently sits at a very positive user score on Steam with over 100,000 reviews. Critic sentiment is a little more spread out, however. Since Palworld is still in early access, there's no aggregate score on OpenCritic, but we can get an idea from a couple outlets that gave it a provisional score. On the lower end of the spectrum, Attack of the Fanboy gave the game a 2.5 out of 5, citing how unpolished the game feels. They were playing on Xbox, which seems to suffer from some performance issues that the PC version has largely avoided. On the opposite spectrum, IGN gave the game an 8 out of 10, praising its addictive gameplay loop and overall bombastic attitude. Overall, I think most people seem to agree that this is more than just Pokemon with guns, and there are some solid gameplay systems here. We'll be circling back to this one in a couple months, and hopefully the Xbox version feels a lot better to play by then. Graven is a first-person action-adventure title featuring 8-player co-op, and it recently came out of early access on the 23rd. Steam users have it at a mixed rating with close to 700 reviews. Unfortunately, the game isn't faring any better on OpenCritic as it landed with a weaker 62 rating there. God is a Geek scored it a 7.5 out of 10. They're one of the more positive reviews, praising the retro aesthetic but citing how ultimately the combat falls short. Enshrouded is an online co-op survival game that's garnered a lot of attention and goodwill, and it's finally launched onto early access on the 24th. It currently sits at a very positive user rating on Steam with close to 12,000 reviews. Since it's in early access, there's no score on OpenCritic just yet, but I do want to pull from the IGN review, which scored it an 8 out of 10, saying this: Enshrouded will likely be an instant hit for anyone who's ever wanted to build a castle in a fantasy world full of danger, and it makes all that building fun and easy with an intuitive set of tools. But even if you don't care much about crafting or building, Enshrouded's RPG systems are already solid enough to carry you through its open world for a few dozen hours. Even if its vague story isn't all that powerful, its puzzles are forgettable, and its combat and movement systems could use some fine-tuning. This is definitely one we're keen to play for ourselves, so hopefully we can find some time soon or circle back to it sometime this year. Speed Crew is an overcooked-like game themed around a racing pit crew. You know, like that little Italian car named Guido in Cars? We could go on a whole rabbit hole about cars right now, like what do they eat, or where do the baby cars come from? But we should probably just get back to Speed Crew instead. It features 4-player co-op both online and local, and it landed with a fair 70 OpenCritic rating. Screen Rant gave the game a 4 out of 5, praising its fun, if chaotic, co-op gameplay. If you're a fan of these chaotic co-op games, this seems like a worthy addition.
February is like a Category 5 hurricane of co-op games, and being a Floridian, I can say that and actually mean it, so let's waste no time and dive right in. At the top, I called out Granblue Fantasy Relink for having a confusing rollout, so let me just recount it and let you decide for yourself if I'm justified. The game releases on PlayStation on the 1st, and on PC on the 31st at 9 PM, don't ask me why, but if you pre-ordered the game you can play it as of the 29th, but only on PlayStation, mind you, not PC. You can still pre-order the game and play it early until the 31st when you can no longer pre-order it. So on the 31st, if you haven't pre-ordered it, then you have to wait one more day on PlayStation, but on PC at 9 PM you can start playing it. On top of that, the review embargo has still not lifted, which probably means it lifts on the 31st, a day before the official release, but 2 days after the early access release. Personally, if a game is available for purchase, I feel like reviews should be available to help give them a sense of whether or not the game is right for them, but that's just me. And that sums up where we're at on Granblue. Outside of all that, the game does look really cool. It's a mixture of a JRPG and a Monster Hunter. You play through a solo campaign and unlock characters for your party and then can use them in multiplayer where you take on individual missions, a la Monster Hunter. It's a little different, hoping we get to hop in sometime soon, but unironically, we're waiting for reviews to determine if we will. Hellcard's official 1.0 comes out on the 1st, but it's not as well advertised or anticipated as Granblue Fantasy Relink, but we don't discriminate here at the Co-op Bros, so we'll cover it all the same. It's a cooperative deck builder roguelike game, something you don't see often with 3-player online co-op. It's been in early access since February of last year and has garnered a respectable 83% very positive on Steam in that time. Looks like an interesting title. If you're into deck builders, it's probably worth checking out. Now, if you thought Granblue had a confusing rollout, get ready for the absolute debauchery that is Suicide Squad. Let's start here. The game releases on the 2nd of this week. However, as of the 30th, today, you can start playing the game, if you pay a whopping $100 for the deluxe version. Mind you, there are no reviews out yet, not because of a review embargo per se, but because reviewers weren't even able to play the game before today because servers just went live. On top of that, IGN has announced they didn't even receive codes after their preview largely panned the title, going as far to title the video "We played it and we didn't like it." I don't know if a game has ever gone into launch with more red flags than this. There are even reports of a bug that is showing up that finishes the game before you even start it, a first as far as I can remember, and that means that servers have to go down to fix it, making the game unplayable until they do fix it for the people that paid $100 for the title. What is happening here? Usually we try to be positive about games and give the benefit of the doubt, but man, let's just say the next week will be very interesting for Rocksteady and will fill you in as it develops. The arrival of Square Enix's FoamStars is almost here on the 6th, and we have some great news. It'll be part of PlayStation Plus on release. Having it available there will give it the boost it probably needs to make a splash. It's not always a clean launch for these PvP games. So puns aside, why are we talking about FoamStars in the Co-op Monthly, you're probably asking. With the announcement of its release date, we also got news of a PvE mode that, like the entire premise of the game, sounds suspiciously like Splatoon, specifically the Salmon Run mode. You and a group have to defend Bath Vegas from waves of bubble beasties, and no, I'm not making that up. The game also has a year's worth of support ready to go and the possibility to add additional solo and co-op content post-launch. I don't know what to think of FoamStars, but hey, maybe I'll try it because it's free on PlayStation Plus. Helldivers II is easily one of our most anticipated co-op titles of the year, and it's right around the corner, and we could not be more excited. This is of course the long-awaited follow-up to Helldivers with a big change from top-down to third-person action. The game will feature 4-player online co-op with crossplay between PlayStation and PC, plus a $40 price tag. That all is exactly what we want to see out of this title, and the gameplay isn't too shabby either. It looks to be a mission-based experience. A recent trailer broke down how the progression and the structure of the game works. It's worth a watch to help you hold out the remaining hours prior to launch. Quickly wanted to mention that PlateUp is coming to consoles in Game Pass on the 15th. It's been out on PC, so this is just a simple port, but it's perfect for the Switch and we love to see it on Game Pass. Just think Overcooked but as a roguelike and you're on the right track. We've played it and enjoyed it ourselves, but don't take our word for it. The game has an overwhelmingly positive Steam user rating from other players. Mario vs. Donkey Kong is a remake of the old GBA original, and they're not just updating visuals, but also adding a 2-player local co-op mode with your boy Toad. This is a puzzle platformer where the goal is to retrieve stolen mini Marios by working your way through small bite-sized stages. It's been a long time since we've seen this series, so I'm keen to see how it reviews in the modern day on the 16th. Okay, quick pause before I commit to this next one. I just need to double check my sources, and yep, it does seem to be releasing this month, so let's go for it. Skull and Bones is actually here for real this time on the 16th of February. If you just decided to get into gaming, let me tell you that Skull and Bones was first announced as a sort of spiritual successor to the naval combat of Assassin's Creed Black Flag way back in 2017. Yes, that's right, 7 years ago. Since then, it's had multiple trailers, multiple directions, probably multiple directors, and of course, multiple release dates. As for why it's in this video series, the game will feature online 3-player co-op where you can do missions and explore the open world together in a group. Not on the same boat, mind you, but as a small fleet of 3. We also got details on the first year of content with 4 seasons where you take on quote-unquote iconic and increasingly difficult pirates. I would love it if this defies all expectations and is somehow a worthwhile experience, and I guess we'll know if that's the case pretty soon. Another game that's seen a few delays itself, granted nothing compared to Skull and Bones, is Nightingale. We're finally going to be able to play it on the 22nd, granted in early access. It's a survival adventure title with 6-player online co-op. We've always been intrigued by the fantasy setting and impressive art direction, but like with any early access title, we need to see how much content it has at launch, plus if it's in a stable technical state. IGN did release a preview that's worth a watch that was generally positive and has me a little bit more excited than I was before. A game we actually did cover when it launched into early access a year ago was Sons of the Forest, the much anticipated follow-up to the survival cult title, The Forest. It's coming out until 1.0 on the 22nd and will feature 8-player online co-op. We love what we played a year ago and there have been a ton of updates since. Special shout out to IGN's video that covers the biggest ones, they crushed it there. Plus there will be even more with the 1.0, like a new voice actor for Timmy and more in cutscenes. All in all, this is a title 100% worth checking out if you're interested, and on the 22nd it'll never be a better time to do exactly that. Sidebar, the beginning of the year is chock full of co-op survival titles, going from Palworld to Enshrouded to Nightingale to Sons of the Forest, all within the span of a little over a month. Co-op survival titles have always been a popular genre, but are they getting oversaturated? It's hard to say, but we're definitely in the thick of it right now. I'd be curious to know which of these 4 titles you're interested in playing. Let us know in the comments the game that stands out to you most of all. Probably Palworld, it's already got like 9 million plus players, but who knows? I think Sons of the Forest is probably the best game available. Finishing out the month is Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons Remake, which brings modern visuals and local co-op to the title. For those of you not in the know, this was the first game out of Joseph Fares' team, who would later go on to make A Way Out, a great co-op title, and It Takes Two, an amazing co-op title. So seeing the decision to go back to this original and add in co-op is really exciting, even if it only is local for 2 players. Probably a great game to try out with a partner, as it's more story focused than challenging on the 28th. Wait, what's this iconic shop music doing here? Did the bros get a sponsorship? Not quite, I'm here to take a second out of your monthly to tell you about our brand new Patreon. That's right, the boys are officially opening up a Patreon to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the channel. We're going with 3 tiers as follows. Tier number 1 is a $1 sub called the Squad Up tier, which gives you access to our monthly newsletter, our Patreon feed, producer credit, and special Patreon role in the Discord. Tier number 2 is the $5 Wombo Combo tier, which includes all previous tier benefits, voting rights on our yearly backlog game, Looking at You Portal 2, and exclusive access to our quarterly Q&A video. Finally, tier number 3 is our Jolly Cooperation $10 sub that includes all previous benefits, Patreon exclusive 10% off merch code, and an executive producer credit. I'm sure you know what that means, the big font. Of course, if you support us at any of these tiers, a huge thank you to you. We love doing this channel, and this Patreon just helps to make that happen. Now let's get back to the show.
Man, that upcoming game section was a doozy. We're gonna give Andrew a break here as I cover the entirety of our news block. It's a slower news month, but we have some great games to talk about, so let's dive in. Okay, so Palworld. In case you haven't heard, Palworld has sold a whole lot of copies and is the talk of the town. Like I said earlier, it sold 8 million copies in 1 week and went on to become the 2nd game in history to reach over 2 million concurrent players on Steam. All of which is absolutely wild. But all that success has not come without a bit of controversy. Obviously, if you take one look at this game, it's pretty easy to see some similarities between this and Pokemon. The question is how far those similarities go. There's a couple different questions going around, whether the designs of pals are AI generated, vaguely inspired by real Pokemon designs, or even whether the developers altered specific Pokemon models when creating pals. There hasn't been a conclusive answer to any of these questions. Pocket Pair has denied any of these allegations as well. So what What does the Pokemon Company have to say about all of this? Well, in a recent statement, they said they plan to investigate the matter and take any appropriate measures regarding copyright infringement. I, for one, will be watching this story very closely with a bucket of popcorn in hand, and will be sure to update you in any future monthlies. Watch this space, as they say. Moving along to updates on upcoming titles, and this is one game we've been dying to talk about. You may already know about Rise of the Ronin, the upcoming open world game from Team Ninja, but did you know that there's a chance it has online co-op? The PlayStation Store page for the game lists support for 3-player online co-op. But if that's the case, why hasn't that been mentioned in any of the promotional material thus far? I don't know that we can confidently confirm or deny this until the team themselves speak up about it. Lucky for you, a new PlayStation State of Play is coming this week on Wednesday that should give us all the answers we're looking for. Not so lucky for your boys, since we won't be able to cover it here. Thanks a lot, Sony. This next game is a special one because it comes from one of our community members on Discord. Guards is an upcoming co-op fantasy FPS featuring 4-player online co-op. It takes all the goofiness of something like Angerfoot or Lethal Company, but in a fantasy setting. The game is still in development with a potential release date for March of this year. And if you want to test it out for yourself, a new demo went up on Steam on the 17th. This is the first game from Wilder Zone, and they have a commitment to exclusively focus on making co-op games, so do us a favor, go wishlist Guards and play the demo if it looks cool to you. Shadow of the Ninja Reborn is a remake of the retro classic co-op platformer originally released back in 1990. It was originally slated to release in the spring of this year, but is now delayed to the summer. The game features 2-player local co-op and will be available on all platforms. Finally, let's close this out with a couple of game announcements. So around this time last year, Jake, Christian, and I started playing a goofy little roguelike game called Shoulders of Giants. We loved it so much that I ended up covering the game on our 15 indie co-op games you might have missed video. So imagine my surprise when I caught wind of Entropy Survivors and its similarities to Shoulders of Giants. So Entropy Survivors is essentially Shoulders of Giants, but now a top-down bullet hell roguelite. It's being developed by the same team and will feature 4-player online co-op. Happy the team is finding new ways to keep their weird little frog/mech game alive. Look forward to a Q2 release and check out the demo if it piques your interest. Opidum is a story-driven action-adventure title featuring 4-player online co-op. It features base building, survival elements, and third-person combat. I really like the art style of this one and the dynamic day and night cycle. No release date just yet, so be sure to add Opidum to your wishlist to keep up with any news on the title. This last announcement is something a little different from us, but it's probably the thing I've been most looking forward to talking about in this episode. This is Project Bubblegum. It's a 4-player beat-em-up featuring both local and online co-op. It's currently in development and recently went live on Kickstarter. We've spoken a bit with the team through email, and I became really invested in what they're building. First of all, the game has a really great art style. All the different characters feel super unique and have this animated movie look, a little bit of Pixar almost, and yeah, I love it. Each character also have different roles to play in battle, which is always music to our ears. They plan to have some cool co-op mechanics like performing a KO together or other special co-op moves. All in all, it looks like they're building something really special. We're not sponsored by them or anything, they just emailed us about their game and I thought, oh, this looks pretty sick. If you also think it looks sick, please check out their Kickstarter, I'll have the link down below. Consider supporting them, wishlist the game on Steam, and check out the demo really soon. Thanks for watching, guys. We're super stoked to bring this series back for its 3rd year. If you like what we're doing here, consider subscribing, following us on our socials, or joining our Discord server. And if you want to go the extra mile, please check out our Patreon and merch store. You can find the links for everything down below. And I want to give a big thank you to everyone who's become a patron already. Your support there means a ton. We're looking forward to bringing you quality co-op content this year. Thanks for all the support. We'll catch you next time on another episode of The Co-op Bros.